So you want to retire in Hawaii. Before you picture yourself on a lanai, watching the sunset every night, let's talk about what that actually costs. Because Hawaii is one of the most misunderstood places in America when it comes to retirement economics. It's not just expensive, it's expensive in ways that surprise even people who did their homework, and it's forgiving in a few specific ways almost nobody mentions. Let's break down the real numbers. Here's what gets people's attention first. Hawaii's cost of living index sits around 193, meaning everyday life costs roughly double the national average. The median home price statewide runs somewhere between $690,000 and $830,000, and that climbs sharply on Oahu and Maui. This is consistently ranked the single most expensive state in the country to live in, full stop. But here's the twist. Almost nobody expects. Property taxes in Hawaii are among the lowest in the entire United States, with an effective rate around 0.27%. On a typical home, that's somewhere around $1,800 to $2,400 a year, genuinely lower than plenty of much cheaper mainland states. The sticker price on a home is brutal, but the ongoing carrying cost is surprisingly light. Income tax gets even more interesting. Hawaii does not tax Social Security benefits at all, and it exempts most employer-funded pensions too. But withdrawals from a 401k or a traditional IRA, money you personally contributed, get taxed as ordinary income, at rates climbing to 11%, one of the highest top brackets in the country. So a retiree living on Social Security and a straightforward pension can pay close to zero state income tax. A retiree pulling most of their income from a 401k feels that 11% bracket directly. Then there's electricity, and this is the cost almost nobody budgets for correctly. As of 2026, Hawaii has the highest residential electricity rates in the entire country, around 43 to 46 cents per kilowatt hour, over double the national average. A typical household bill runs $200 to $215 a month, before air conditioning even becomes a factor. Each island runs its own isolated grid, and most power still comes from imported oil. The silver lining: these same high rates make rooftop solar pay for itself in as little as 5 to 7 years, far faster than on the mainland, which is why many long-term retirees treat solar as close to mandatory rather than optional. There's also the general excise tax, which functions like a sales tax but is broader and sneakier, applying to almost every transaction including services, and getting baked into prices at multiple stages before it ever reaches your cart. Groceries follow a similar pattern. Anything shipped in can run 30 to 60% above mainland prices, while locally grown produce like papaya, avocado, and pineapple skips that markup entirely, which is why cost-conscious retirees lean their diet toward what's actually grown on island. Given how many of these costs are hard to reverse once you've committed, most relocation specialists recommend renting for at least a full year before buying anything, long enough to experience a complete change of season and get a real feel for costs before making an expensive, hard-to-undo purchase. Housing has its own quirk too. A meaningful share of Hawaii property, especially older Oahu condos, is sold as leasehold rather than fee simple. You own the structure, but lease the land underneath, often for decades, with rent that can escalate and resale value that can decline sharply as the lease clock winds down. Most advisors recommend sticking to fee simple unless you fully understand the lease terms and have modeled how the economics shift as that lease term shortens. Condo HOA fees run high too, often several hundred to over $1,000 a month, driven by the same high electricity and insurance costs affecting the whole state. Insurance has shifted meaningfully in recent years. The 2023 Maui wildfire reshaped the insurance market statewide, not just on Maui, and many retirees are finding premiums noticeably higher than a few years ago than what older cost of living guides still quote. On the Big Island specifically, certain lava hazard zones require specialty coverage that's expensive or simply unavailable through standard carriers. So getting a current quote before closing on any home is essential rather than optional. Location matters enormously too. Honolulu and Oahu sit at the expensive end but offer the best infrastructure and healthcare. Maui's resort areas skew upscale, though upcountry towns like Kula offer real savings and a cooler climate. Kauai runs a middle tier with notably lower electricity, thanks to its own renewable co-op, with Poipu on the sunny south shore as its closest thing to a resort zone, and Hanalei on the north shore, commanding a real premium for its dramatic scenery. And the Big Island, specifically Hilo, is the consistent standout, where a moderate retirement portfolio can actually work on paper without needing a much larger nest egg. Here's what nobody puts in the headlines. Shipping costs are baked into nearly everything, sometimes called the Hawaii tax, even though it's not a tax at all. Specialist healthcare on smaller islands often means flying to Honolulu, a real recurring cost, both in flight expense and lost time. Medicare works the same everywhere, but Medicare Advantage plan options and pricing vary meaningfully by county, and rural counties often have fewer choices. Vehicle and gas prices run high, and outside Oahu, a car is essentially mandatory. Long-term care costs also rank among the highest in the nation, so retirees need a real plan for that eventuality, not just the active retirement years. And if you're not a full-time resident yet, Hawaii still taxes income earned while you're physically in the state. Establishing residency properly, with an updated license and voter registration, matters more than people expect it to. The actual move itself is a real, often five-figure cost too. Shipping a car typically runs $1,500 to $2,500 one way, and a full household move via ocean freight can run $5,000 to $15,000 or more, which is why many retirees sell most mainland furniture and simply buy new once they've relocated. Pets face a rabies prevention process that requires months of advanced planning, since Hawaii remains rabies-free retains. It's worth a quick comparison to Florida, the other major American retirement destination. Florida has zero state income tax and a dramatically lower cost of living. Hawaii can't win on pure cost efficiency for someone drawing heavily from a 401k or IRA. But Hawaii offers a lifestyle, climate, and cultural experience Florida simply cannot replicate. This isn't about one being objectively better, it's about what you're actually optimizing for. A couple of quick myths worth busting. Hawaii doesn't offer any special application-based retiree tax program the way some countries do. The advantages come automatically from how your income is structured, not from applying for anything. And simply buying property here doesn't grant any tax benefit or residency shortcut. Ownership and tax residency are two completely separate legal questions. Now, here's the part most retirement content skips entirely. What does this look like with serious money, not just a pension? Private membership communities like Kukio and Hualalai on the Big Island offer oceanfront estates, golf, and marina access, with dues running into the hundreds of thousands annually on top of eight-figure properties. Wailea on Maui offers a similar tier of luxury resort living. Wealthy retirees here commonly fund land conservation trusts, since undeveloped Hawaiian land carries deep cultural significance, a genuine philanthropic act, and often a real tax strategy. Boat and yacht ownership fits naturally given the geography, with marina slips at a premium on Oahu and Maui. Some retirees invest directly in local agriculture, Kona coffee farms, macadamia operations, building a real connection to the local economy rather than just occupying real estate. Private aviation solves the inter-island travel friction entirely, at a cost that only makes sense at a certain wealth threshold. And because generational wealth transfer matters here, many set up dynasty trusts specifically to manage Hawaii's estate tax above roughly $5.49 million, keeping island property in the family for generations. On the philanthropic side, wealthy retirees here often gravitate toward causes tied specifically to the island's history. Native Hawaiian educational trusts, marine conservation given the visible health of the reefs right offshore, and housing affordability nonprofits addressing the exact displacement pressure that outside wealth can contribute to in the first place. Let's run the real math. A couple with $2,800 a month in Social Security and a $1,200 employer pension pays close to zero state income tax on that $4,000. Own a $700,000 home, and property tax lands around $2,000 a year. a rounding error next to what that home would cost in tax in New Jersey. Their real challenge is simply the cost of living itself, especially electricity. Now take a retiree drawing $60,000 a year from a traditional IRA. That gets taxed toward the 11% bracket on top of an already expensive cost of living, a meaningfully worse outcome despite similar total income. Same state, same tax code, two completely different experiences, purely based on where the money comes from. Now picture a third retiree relocating with several million in investable assets into one of those private membership communities. Their property tax stays proportionally modest, even on an 8-figure home, and their real financial planning shifts entirely toward estate structuring and club dues, rather than anything resembling a typical retirement budget. So does retiring in Hawaii actually work? It depends enormously on your income source, not just its size, and on how deliberately you plan around the costs most retirement content glosses over: electricity, insurance, healthcare logistics, and the actual move itself. Hawaii is unusually generous to retirees on Social Security and pensions, and unusually expensive for everyone once you factor in electricity, insurance, and daily costs. For a modest retirement, Hilo on the Big Island, ideally paired with a mortgage-free move funded by mainland home equity, is where the math has the best realistic shot. For a wealthy retirement, Hawaii offers something genuinely unique: a small, tightly knit ecosystem of ultra-high-end coastal living, land conservation philanthropy, and generational wealth planning that doesn't exist anywhere else in the country, comparable in exclusivity to places like Aspen or Martha's Vineyard, but with a climate and culture neither can replicate.